One of the most important things in fantasy football every single year is going to be offensive line play. This is what's going to separate those top level running backs from the bottom end, specifically with the efficiency with their rushing attack. I mean, we can go back and look at 2 years ago with J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins was an effective running back despite the fact that he really didn't have a workload as a rookie. But because of his combined talent, Lamar Jackson, and elite offensive line play for the Baltimore Ravens, he managed to lead the NFL in yards per carry. So what I want to do here is I want to head over to PFF. I want to look at their top 10 offensive lines for this upcoming season, and I want to determine what exactly it means from a fantasy football standpoint and try to find some running back value, maybe even try to find some quarterback value in later rounds in drafts this season. But before we get into it, you know what I got to ask from you? If you have not done so already, fix your life. Go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. Let's dive right into this and let's look at number one. A team over there in Philadelphia, a team that we have talked about on the live stream before, in my opinion, with the potential to provide us the quarterback one overall in fantasy with Jalen Hurts. And at the same time, I think that you're looking at the combination of Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell as two running backs that are almost being drafted closer to their floors than their relative ceilings. Now, I know that's going to sound surprising whenever you're looking at Miles Sanders as the running back 41 last year on a points per game basis. And if we're going to look at where Miles Sanders is being drafted today, Miles Sanders is being drafted as the running back 26 on Underdog Fantasy. So he's going as that high-end running back 3, low-end running back 2, being drafted directly behind Hopkins, Drake London, Russell Gage, technically ahead of him in ADP at the time of this recording, but because Julio signed, Gage will not be anywhere close to this by the time this video comes out. So you're having to take Miles Sanders in the middle of the 7th round. And if we go back and look at the actual workload that you had with these Philadelphia Eagles running backs last season, I think Miles Sanders got very unlucky. This was a running back that averaged half a touchdown per game back in 2020 when he was the running back 20 on a points per game basis. In 2019, obviously, we saw the elite breakout during the second half of his rookie season, a running back that's always been involved as a pass catcher, but that touchdown total fell to 0 touchdowns this past season. Miles Sanders scored 0 touchdowns. And y'all know my opinion, and we've proven it with numbers as well, is that touchdown rate is going to be one of the most fluky statistics in fantasy football from a season-to-season standpoint. And we should mainly be using it to identify buy low candidates, sell high candidates, to look at someone like Robert Tonyan in 2020 with an unsustainably high touchdown rate and know, okay, this is a player that we clearly need to avoid, and to look at Miles Sanders with an unsustainable low touchdown rate this past season and go, okay, this is someone we need to buy into. Now, some people have caught back up to the rest of the crowd with touchdown rate volatility, so it's not like it's that easy anymore where Miles Sanders all of a sudden is a must-buy running back. And there's one red flag that I'll be the first person to admit with Miles Sanders. If you look at the high value touches, if you look at the touches inside the 10-yard line, pulling this data from Rotoviz, you had 16 touches for Boston Scott, 14 touches for Jordan Howard, 10 touches for Miles Sanders, and 8 for Kenneth Gainwell. So it's not like Miles Sanders just got incredibly unlucky with the touchdown category. When they got inside the 10-yard line, they weren't deploying Miles Sanders. The coaching staff favored the combination of Boston Scott and Jordan Howard, getting them 30 touches combined within that 10-yard line. Now, what I will say is, maybe I'm just dreaming, maybe I'm just wishing it will happen, but I think Boston Scott should have a smaller role going into his age 27 season. If you look at the efficiency numbers for Boston Scott compared to the rookie and Kenneth Gainwell, as well as what we had from Miles Sanders over the past 3 years, I think it's safe to say Boston Scott is definitely the worst running back out of the three, and I would not be surprised if they continue to face him out of their offense. And Jordan Howard's gone. So if all of a sudden those 30 touches inside the 10-yard line get redistributed over to, say, Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell, all of a sudden there could be value to be had here in Philadelphia. Now, yes, Jalen Hurts will vulture a lot of these rushing touchdowns at the goal line. At least that's what he did last year. But remember, we thought that Kyler Murray was going to vulture the rushing touchdowns from James Conner, who then proceeded to average over 1 touchdown per game last year. So I think you do have touchdown upside with Miles Sanders. I think he's probably appropriately priced. We have him ranked around that high-end running back 3 mark in our own rankings as well with our draft guide. But it's at least worth bringing up the fact that they have an elite offensive line. And if you really want to take advantage of this, one of my most drafted quarterbacks in fantasy this year is Jalen Hurts. And if we were looking at the price point for Kenneth Gainwell, damn, Gainwell is very obtainable as a running back that should be playing in a committee with upside for more if the starter were to go down in front of him. Right now, Kenneth Gainwell has an ADP of a running back 50. Running back 50. If Miles Sanders were to go down and there's no Jordan Howard on this offense, I think you could be very excited about that. But let's go ahead. Let's move to a backfield that is now finally being discounted. If we look at the Cleveland Browns backfield this season, Nick Chubb is currently going in the 3rd round on Underdog Fantasy. Kareem Hunt is sliding way down draft boards. If I look at this ADP of Kareem Hunt right now, Hunt is going at pick 94. Let's just hop in that time machine, go back to where we were a year ago. Nick Chubb was a late round 1 pick last year. Kareem Hunt was a running back going in round 5. Yes, Nick Chubb failed. Like we said he would if you were drafting him in round 1. You don't draft a committee running back that's not getting passing down work in round 1. It's the easiest thing ever. But looking at Underdog Fantasy, Chubb currently ADP of 25, behind Higgins, behind Fournette, behind Javonte, behind Tyreek Hill, behind Deebo Samuel. This is when we buy into Nick Chubb. I've been drafting a ton of Nick Chubb on Underdog Fantasy this offseason. And if you are not drafting on Underdog Fantasy, you have something wrong with you. Go have some fun. Draft on Underdog Fantasy. You can find the link in the description. Find the link in the comment section. Nothing's more fun than drafting on Underdog Fantasy, which is why I've done over 400 drafts this offseason. And if you go and sign up for Underdog Fantasy for the first time and use promo code FLOCK with the link in the description, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And you are going to get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide. So please make sure you take advantage of that. Go have some fun getting some drafts. Literally with the $10 deposit, you're getting a 300-page draft guide as well. So find that link in the description. But right now, PFF has the Cleveland Browns as the number 2 offensive line in the NFL. You're getting discounts on both of these running backs because people finally understand that they are in a committee. And there's the outside chance that what if Watson doesn't miss the entire season? What if Watson only misses 8 games? If that happens, all of a sudden, you have the Cleveland Browns in the second half of the season, specifically in the fantasy football playoffs, with potentially the best offensive environment Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt have ever seen. I'm buying in to both of these RBs. I'm going to be paying the price of Nick Chubb in the 3rd and Kareem Hunt around pick 95. Now, going to our next running back, Deandre Swift. Deandre Swift, someone who's been sneaking in to the back half of round 1 in some of these drafts as of late. He has an ADP about 15. Recently has jumped over Mike Evans. Obviously, about 2 or 3 picks ahead of Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley. The Detroit Lions have the 3rd best offensive line in football this upcoming season, according to PFF. With Deandre Swift, obviously, this is a massive bullish mark on him. I haven't been drafting nearly as much Deandre Swift as I did last year because the price tag, because I'm looking at the role that Aaron Jones has in the receiving game in a much better offense with no Devontae Adams in Green Bay, saying, you know what, we probably have some better options than Deandre Swift here with someone like Aaron Jones. However, maybe this is something I have to reevaluate if you are going to have a top 3 offensive line unit for the Detroit Lions, where we know that Deandre Swift is going to be a very effective pass catching running back. But if all of a sudden this team can run the ball with efficiency as well, that could unlock that truly elite level ceiling for Swift. Now, moving over to our next guy, we are going to be looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have a decent amount of offensive line changes this upcoming season. I thought their offensive line was going to be getting worse with a couple of key members leaving, but according to PFF, they were able to plug up those holes completely fine. And with both of these running backs in Tampa, you're getting reasonable price points on them. Like if we go back and look at Leonard Fournette's production on a per game basis, if we pull this up in our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, we're going to see that Leonard Fournette was the running back 5 on a points per game basis. He had 6 targets a game out of the backfield, the target share hovering around 14%, and his touchdown rate wasn't unsustainable. He was only scoring 0.7 touchdowns per game. If anything, in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, you're expecting that number to potentially go up. So with Leonard Fournette, when he's falling to the 2-3 turn, Yeah, there are definitely red flags. I'll be the first person to admit that. That's why I don't have Leonard Fournette ranked as the running back 5 as he finished last year. Instead, I have Leonard Fournette ranked as the running back 11, but on Underdog Fantasy's being drafted as the running back 12. You've seen him fall as of late, given the weight concerns that you have with Leonard Fournette showing up like 246 pounds to camp. Definitely not something you like to see, but I think based on the offensive environment, based on the role that he had last year, it's hard to complain with this price tag that you're getting with Leonard Fournette. Seems like a lot of that downside risk is baked into this draft price. And if we go over and look at Rashad White with where he's currently going, Rashad White, in my opinion, was the best pass-catching running back in this year's NFL draft. I know a lot of people want to say it's James Cook. Trust me, I've drafted a lot of James Cook. But Rashad White has steamed up draft boards as of late, given the weight concerns that you've had with Leonard Fournette. Currently being drafted as the running back 39 on Underdog Fantasy, but that's where the smartest drafters are drafting. I think that's where people really understand the upside that White would have in a receiving form, given the passing rate in the pace of play for Tampa. If you were to have a Leonard Fournette injury, those guys are really looking at the upside that White has. If we head over and look at a much more casual fantasy football draft website, like let's just look up ESPN Fantasy Football ADP. I'm imagining, maybe I'm wrong here, you're going to have a much lower mark with someone like Rashad White, where, like I said, Rashad White on Underdog is going to be running back 39. And yeah, if you're looking at Rashad White in casual formats, this is going to be, according to Fantasy Pros, this is a running back that is falling all the way down to running back 47. So in those sharper draft formats like Underdog Fantasy, where people really know what they're doing, you're seeing people take that upside swing on Rashad White in case something were to happen to Leonard Fournette. But if you're in your casual draft, Rashad White's very, very attainable right now. Now let's head over and look at our next offense, talking about Deandre Swift versus Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are going to be running behind a great offensive line in Green Bay. I'm all in on Aaron Jones. Go look at the receiving splits. We've been talking about this all offseason since Davante Adams got traded. The first thing that we looked at were the receiving splits without and with Davante Adams in Green Bay for Aaron Jones, where Aaron Jones goes from being a running back that's still a great pass catcher out of the backfield to literally Christian McCaffrey level usage in the receiving game with no Davante Adams. So I believe that you are going to have A.J. Dillon with an expanded role this upcoming season. And yes, A.J. Dillon has that elite level ceiling if something were to occur to Aaron Jones. But Aaron Jones should still be a running back that's a top 10 option this upcoming year because of the overall offensive efficiency, the offensive line play, Aaron Rodgers providing so many trips to the red zone, where I think you were going to have more touchdown upside with someone like an Aaron Jones over Deandre Swift, which is why I'm going to prefer Jones. Yes, in our minds, if we're playing Madden, we can definitely say, oh, A.J. Dillon can steal those touchdowns at the goal line. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Dillon is a big-bodied running back that will be effective. But based on what we saw last year, when both running backs were healthy, A.J. Dillon was not getting the touches inside the 10-yard line. That still was Aaron Jones. Now, moving over to our next team, I'm not going to lie, I haven't been drafting the running backs on this roster at all. The Dallas Cowboys are going to have a great offensive line this year. Dallas is coming off a season where they scored the most points in the NFL, but I don't love the price tag on either Ezekiel Elliott or Tony Pollard. Because right now, Ezekiel Elliott going as the running back 17, you're taking him ahead of Breece Hall, you're taking him ahead of Cam Akers, and if you're looking at where Tony Pollard's currently being drafted, you have Tony Pollard as the running back 27. My issue with this is, hell, why am I taking Pollard, who we know pretty much has no shot outside of an injury, to be the running back 1 in his own backfield, where we can get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who also is in an offense that could potentially lead the NFL in scoring. We can get Clyde Edwards-Helaire about 10 picks cheaper. So I hate to say this, but I personally am not in on the price tag of either Ezekiel Elliott or Tony Pollard. I think this is going to be a pure running back by committee. If I had to choose one of these guys, I probably would take in Ezekiel Elliott. I've drafted Ezekiel Elliott at the very end of the 4th round in a lot of these drafts, but very similar to what we were talking about on Rashad White, it's almost the exact opposite. It seems like these sharp drafters on Underdog are deciding to pass on Ezekiel Elliott where they can, where, like I said, they have Ezekiel Elliott at ADP 40. If we're going over and just looking at Fantasy Pros, where the more casual drafters are going to be, they're tracking Fantrax, or I don't even know what they're tracking, but they have Ezekiel Elliott pick 30 overall, running back 16. So I would prefer to fade Ezekiel Elliott in casual formats. If we had to draft one of these guys, Zeke would be my option in a more shark-ish environment on underdog where people know that, hell, we should probably be pushing down the running back that has declined in rushing yards per game every single year since his rookie season, as well as the running back that is declining with his overall workload in this offense. Now let's go over to our next team. Let's go over to the New England Patriots. This is another backfield that I haven't drafted a ton of. Now I'll say at the beginning of the offseason, I was taking a decent amount of Rhamondre Stevenson because Rhamondre Stevenson is a running back that you're looking at as an option that can catch the ball and at the same time can still manage 15, 16, 17 carries between the 20s. Now I will say, I probably drafted a lot more Rhamondre Stevenson last season than I did this year because if we're looking at the ADP, it has climbed steadily this offseason on Underdog Fantasy. You have Rhamondre Stevenson now closing in on Damian Harris in ADP, where Rhamondre Stevenson is the running back 34, going directly before Sky Moore, Tyler Lockett, right around the Matthew Stafford, Dallas Goedert, Devin Singletary range. And I am worried with the additional depth that this New England Patriots offense added this offseason. They draft 2 running backs on day 3, and I understand neither one of those guys are going to start ahead of Damian Harris or Rhamondre Stevenson. My issue is I believe this team is going to be playing a committee no matter what. I think if you have, say, a Damian Harris injury, it's going to be Rhamondre Stevenson and Pierre Strong. If you have, say, a Rhamondre Stevenson injury, I think it's going to be a Damian Harris and a Ty Montgomery. I think you are going to have one of these backs probably leading the team in overall carries, say 12, 13 carries a game because they want to be so damn run heavy. However, we can't necessarily guarantee that these RBs are all of a sudden going to be guys that can go out there and get 75% of the touches in their own backfield. I think it's not in the range of outcomes for either player to be that true bell cow level running back. So even if they have a great offensive line, even if they want to run the ball over and over and over again, I've been on record all offseason saying I'm not drafting Damian Harris at his price tag. I think that was one of the worst picks in fantasy. And then with the Rhamondre Stevenson, I was fine drafting him when he was going around pick 120, 130. I actually drafted a decent amount of him there. But now that he's about to be a top 100 draft pick, this is about the time I go, you know what? Too rich for me. Looks like I'm not going to get anybody from New England. Now, let's go down to our next team, a team that I think this is the best reason to make this video, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals were the #1 team in the NFL in sacks allowed last year, and now PFF has them graded out to be a top 10 offensive line this season. Wheels up, Joe Mixon. We've ranked Joe Mixon as a top 5 running back, although he was one of my most drafted players in fantasy last year when you were getting him at the 2-3 turn. Now, a lot more expensive. You have to draft Joe Mixon at the beginning of the 2nd round. I'm fine doing it. This is a running back that's able to command over a 10% team target share over the past 3 years. And what I really like about this improvement with the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line, with Joe Burrow being another year removed from that significant knee injury that he suffered, is I think this team has it in the range of outcomes to go completely nuclear this upcoming season, to not have drives ended by sacks, to at the same time decide to push the pace of play compared to where they were at last year. This was one of the slowest offenses in the NFL in terms of getting the ball off early in the overall play count. And if they decide to change that this upcoming season, if they decide to look a little bit more like Tampa, like Buffalo, like Los Angeles, like Kansas City, like any of these top level offenses that know they have an elite level quarterback and want to get as many plays off per game, that's how you see a Cincinnati Bengals true explosion. That's how you get Joe Burrow to lead the NFL in passing yards. That's how you get a top 10 finish for both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That's how you get a top 5 finish for Joe Mixon. I think that we can see Zach Taylor decide to push that pace of play because of the improved offensive line, and he doesn't have to just try to protect Joe Burrow all game. Now, our next offensive line inside the top 10, going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. With the Chiefs, I have decided to start just hammering in 8th round Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We said this in another live stream the other night. Guys, I'll be the first person to admit, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably a bad running back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably not talented. However, it may not matter. If he is going to be the starting running back with a small role in the receiving game this upcoming season for Kansas City, and on top of that, you're looking at this team top 10 in the NFL in overall points scored, guaranteed, potentially a top 3 offense with overall points scored, even with the departure of Tyreek Hill, and we're looking at a top 10 offensive line. This could get really nice for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And at the same time, I need to at least bring up the fact that this is a running back that had gallbladder surgery last offseason. He dropped 15 pounds before the season even started. 15 pounds for a 5'8" running back is massive. So what if, I know it's not likely, but we can at least say it's possible. What if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is good at football? What if he is? What if we have a running back that's dealt with a laundry list of injuries through the first 2 years of his NFL career, that just turned 23, that is actually good at football, going to improve, going to be the starting running back in Kansas City, playing behind a top 10 offensive line with Patrick Mahomes, and you're getting that player in the 8th round. You're getting that player after Tony Pollard. I wasn't drafting him a ton at the beginning of the 7th, but here in the 8th, God, this is beautiful value. I'm going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire here almost every chance I get, especially because I can't stop drafting 5th round Patrick Mahomes. Now our last team, I don't need to talk about them, the Indianapolis Colts. Draft Jonathan Taylor. Is that what you want me to say? Draft Jonathan Taylor at the 101. Okay, everybody's doing it. Everybody knows to do it. I can't even say anything there. But thank you so much for being a part of the flock, supporting the channel. I really hope this video helped you out. I really hope you got something from it. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all of y'all, and I hope you have a great day.